think.
I'll check the link.
Yeah, I'm going to check that before I do anything.
Got a little notification that we're streaming live. It's probably a 40-second delay.
There it is.
I think.
Notification that we're streaming live.
And here we go.
It's probably a 40-second delay.
Lunch with Brad. Come on.
Where's the budget?
Come on. No, you want to. Lunch with
Brad. Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go. This is episode 1 of my new podcast, Lunch with Brad. I am your host, Brad Williams, and I'm super excited because I have not been on a podcast of my own in probably about a year and a half. So I am back, baby, and I have an awesome show for you and some amazing people that we're going to get to in just a minute. But let me tell you a little bit about what you can expect here. So Lunch with Brad, it's going to be, to start, it's going to be a bi-weekly live video podcast. Bi-weekly because I'm calling this my MVP podcast. This is my minimum viable podcast. What that means is we're just going to dive in and figure this out as we go. It might be a little rough around the edges. Might not be as polished as maybe what some of you are used to, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about a lot of fun web and technology topics, and really anything that I think is cool. Because honestly, there's a lot of really cool articles and stories out there that maybe aren't related to the web, but we're still going to talk about them. So every show, I'm going to bring on some friends. We're going to talk about topics, go in kind of a round table format, and you can get involved very, very easily. Again, this is my MVP. I don't have a separate Twitter or Facebook, just hashtag Lunch with Brad on Twitter, hashtag it on Facebook, and I will find it. So send us some topics, maybe your opinions on some of the topics we talk about, whatever it may be, hashtag Lunch with Brad. The show is going to be live streamed on YouTube and, of course, through the website over at lunchwithbrad.com. And with that, we just got to hear that again, right? Lunch with Brad. All right, I paid $50 for that license. I'm getting my money's worth. Trust me. You're going to hear that a lot through these episodes. But let's get right to it. I want to introduce my friends on the show. I have Stacy, Matt, and Joe. So I'm going to let you guys kind of do your intro. So Stacy, why don't you kick us off?
Hello, my name is Stacy. I don't know what we should say about ourselves. I work at Oddbird. I am a user experience designer and a user interface developer. I love all things tech and web design and development, and I'm excited to be here today on the inaugural episode of Lunch with Brad.
Yes, I'm excited you're here as well, Stacy. I know you've been on a number of podcasts. You're a bit of a podcast junkie. I think you describe yourself. I think I've seen a list, or you've mentioned how many podcasts you kind of regularly subscribe to, and it's a big list. Now you got one more to add to it. No pressure.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Matt.
My name is Matt. I do a podcast.
All right, next up.
I was waiting for it.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Matt. Go ahead.
Ready? My name's Matt. I do a podcast called Matt Report. Work for this amazing company right here called Pagely.com. And I've been loving podcasts for the last 6 years. Used to do a show with Joe for WordPress tutorials. It's a fun time. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. And I got to give Matt props. He's one I've been toying with the idea of the show for probably longer than I want to admit. And Matt's the one that said, "What are you waiting for, dude? Just do it." And literally was probably on a weekly basis bugging me about it. So thank you for being so annoying, Matt. And here we are
That's what I'm here for.
Episode 1.
Cheers.
And we also have Joe. Joe, man, how's it going?
Good. My name's Joe Casabona. I am a New Yorker living near Philly, which is great right now, right around the Super Bowl for me. I am a front-end developer and course creator over at creatorcourses.com. And I have a podcast called How I Built It, where I interview people about how they build stuff. And I've had Matt on the show. I've had Brad. Okay. I've had
Joe, just do your job, buddy. Just do.
Great. Hey, I'm rooting for the Pats this time around. Sorry, Philly. And I have Brad coming up on my show later in the season. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm a Giants fan, in case anybody needed that stated explicitly. So remember the Giants, Matt?
We haven't even got through the intros, and we're already talking about football, which I knew was coming. So of course I'm prepared. Right? And I think we all know what's actually going to happen. Now, I'm actually a Raiders fan, rocking my Raiders gear today, and living in Philly. So, Joe, you and I are having a good old time watching fans of the local team. It's definitely crazy here, but it is a lot of fun to see it happening. Matt, I'm sure you're used to it because, I think you guys have been in every Super Bowl for the past decade. So,
yeah,
gotta be getting boring at this point.
I will get my free coffee at Wawa on Sunday. I'm giving away free coffee for the Eagles being in the Super Bowl.
Are they dyeing it green? That's what I want to know. If it's not green, it's not going to be good luck.
No good.
So, all right. Well, I definitely appreciate you guys being on. I know this is a little bit of a experimente, but if everyone can notice a trend here, I have very seasoned podcasters on this show, so I can kind of just sit back and let these three do what they do. And I think it's going to be a pretty amazing show regardless. So, but let's get into it. We got some topics this week. Some of these you may have heard of, some of them you maybe have not heard of, but ding, ding, ding. Let's do it. So the first one I want to talk about is a biggie, and it's on all of our minds, and it's been on our minds, which is net neutrality. This is kind of, if you're to do anything with the internet, really, if you are just on the internet, period, whether you do it as a professional or just for fun, this is a topic that affects you. This is a topic I'm sure you've heard about. I'm sure most people listening to the show have thought deeply about this topic, and it's one that really is going to have kind of potential sweeping effects across everybody. And I think what really interests me about this topic is the potential impact it's going to have on professionals in the space, professionals that, use the internet to work, to live, to survive, which we all do. We're podcasting right now, live streaming, pushing a lot of data to YouTube for free, right? So who wants to take a stab at in a TLDR, a nutshell, what is net neutrality and why should we care?
Joe.
I'll go. Yeah, Joe. There we go. So in a nutshell, right, net neutrality is the idea that internet service providers can't essentially give preferential treatment to certain services, right? So the main big ticket word when associating to net neutrality is throttling. If Comcast decides that Netflix is taking too much competition away from their own streaming service, Comcast can't throttle Netflix in order to benefit their own platform. That's the idea behind net neutrality.
Yeah, and I think on the surface, when you really think about it, it sounds extremely scary, like the potential impact. And I think most of articles you read or what you hear is potential, right? Because nobody really knows what various ISPs or internet providers will do or won't do. There's a lot of potential areas there. So, Stacey, is this the end of the internet as we know it? Is this over? Are we done?
I am interested in what we can do now that they've repealed net neutrality. What is our route to go back to making sure everything is more fair and open? It should be considered a utility nowadays. The internet is just as important as all of the other utilities. It helps with your daily life. You get a job, boost the economy, all these small businesses that won't be able to get listed or have fast service because of this paid priority, which most of these internet service provider companies are saying, we won't touch anything. This is just, but down the line, of course they're going to, why wouldn't they if they can make more money from this? So I guess I'm more interested in what we can do now. And I thought some of the states stepping in to enforce the rules for their states' rights was kind of an interesting story around this. And I would just like to see more of that and to know what we as people can do to kind of push this along.
Yeah, I mean, that's the state stuff is really interesting. And from some of the stuff I've been reading and hearing on the news, it almost sounds like the federal government might actually be trying to squash that as an option, even like there can't potentially be state level kind of net neutrality rules. I don't know if that's finalized or not, but it sounds like that's what they're pushing for. Because I agree, a lot of states are kind of saying this is not cool, and if you're not going to do something, we will. Which is, again, why we're the United States and why we have state, local governments and federal governments. So, yeah, I mean that's a great question, Matt. What can we do? How can we continue on without this impacting how we've known the internet today?
Well, I don't know if I have an answer for that specifically, but I'll tell you one of the things that, and I know Joe is sort of in the same mindset as me, is I like to try to listen and digest both sides of the story because, in today's political climate, it's very polarizing. And
Stop it. No, why you're literally listening to both sides. Nobody does that, Matt.
Right. And so what got me, this is just around Christmas time, just about before, is here we are sort of rah. We don't want them, taking this away from us. We don't want our internet freedoms going away. And we're sort of rallying around this cause. But really what we're rallying for is to leave, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, is to leave these giants, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Verizons, the AT&Ts of the world, as is, under the guise of, hey, don't take away our freedoms. Meanwhile, YouTube and Amazon are doing exactly what we're all afraid of with net neutrality by saying, oh, guess what? We're going to take YouTube off of Amazon Fire Stick because somehow we're losing ad revenue on the Fire Stick viewers. So now we have exactly what we're trying to fight to stop happening in the corporate world. So I really don't know, right? I'm still, as crazy as it is, I certainly don't want my internet freedoms lost. I certainly want open internet. I want all of that stuff. I just don't know what happens when you do this. Like when the market speaks, what's going to happen? Everybody's saying like, oh, we're going to get more competition, and that's great. But at the same time, I'm afraid that corporations are just going to get even stronger, that there won't be any small ISPs. I used to work for a small ISP, still in business, by the way, about 10 years ago. And, I've seen it. I've seen how hard it is to compete against that. And certainly these things are supposed to open that up, but I don't believe it. That's the economic side. But then, of course, there's, the privacy and all that stuff. And that's a scary thing. But I'm just looking at this like, do we win either way? Really? With corporations? Do we win either way? Because it's happening without this stuff going away with YouTube and Amazon. And it'll continue to happen as more of these big companies get into our homes through set-top boxes and our devices.
Matt bringing the deep thoughts, seriously taking on another level. But I absolutely agree. And I think if you think about it in the way you just described it with the corporations, like to me, net neutrality is ultimately going to come down to us supporting, either the companies, the internet providers, the services that are doing right by us, right? So if we know for a fact, right now I'm on Verizon, I have Verizon Fios for my internet. And if I find out that Verizon starts throttling certain things, or certain services or prioritizing or whatever they end up doing, then I'm immediately going to be looking for an alternative, right? I'm going to support the people that are handling my internet connection and what I'm, surfing and doing online in the way I want. Now, unfortunately, we're not always going to have a lot of options, right? Most of us probably only have a couple ISP options. Hopefully we have at least two options for some really high-speed internet. A lot of areas have one. If they have high speed. So I think that is going to be a bit of a sticky situation, but I'm hopeful that with the competition aspect of it, that becomes as much as a selling point as speed. Like, hey, we're not going to mess with what you do as long as it's legal. You're paying for the bandwidth, you're good to go. I think that's going to be a sales point going forward.
Right.
So this is easily a topic we could probably spend the whole time on, but we're not going to. So it's definitely some valuable input. I'm sure we'll be watching this and talking about it because this is not done. And I think I hope it's not an ongoing thing that we're still talking about 5 years from now, but at least in the near future, it will be. So you like my bell? I was debating between that or like my ship bell. Or I feel like the air horn's a bit aggressive.
You have a sad trombone on there?
I have I have a Debbie Downer. Does that count?
Yeah,
sure.
All right, moving on. So anyone that knows any of us knows that we have a bit of a passion for WordPress. So obviously we're going to talk about some WordPress on this show. This is not a WordPress centric podcast, but I can promise you the topic will come up from time to time. And I want to bring this one up because it's a biggie, and this will not be a weekly or recurring topic because everybody's talking about it constantly, but it is a big topic, and that is Gutenberg.
What is it?
Mufasa.
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
No.
Yeah, you remember The Lion King when they'd say Mufasa and
oh yeah,
Gutenberg. So Gutenberg, what is Gutenberg? Who wants to take a stab? Stacy, you want to give us the lowdown on the Gutenberg?
Sure, I can. However, I should preface this with I do a very small percentage of my work nowadays in WordPress, but my understanding of Gutenberg, which I'm very interested to hear everyone else's take on the direction it's going and how it's going to affect the WordPress marketplace. It's basically kind of modernizing WordPress to enable a pseudo, I'll call it, front end editing experience, even though it's still not on the front end, which is a little confusing. Maybe one day it will get there. I know there's a lot of problems with creating like nested blocks. Everything is in this block concept where you add these blocks and it's just like a drag and drop interface. Think of it as like probably a few steps behind the page builders of today's market, but it's going to be built in core. So I'm curious to see its full plan on what it looks like when it's fully baked in, and B, in the meantime, what we should be doing with our current clients as far as how we set them up to be slightly more future-proof. And I know Gutenberg is trying to work with plugin developers to make sure things will kind of just work and all these sites aren't broke 29% of the internet or whatever it is nowadays. That should be an interesting challenge. I myself am super excited for it because WordPress needs to do something. And maybe this isn't a perfect solution, but if it doesn't do something, it's falling far behind some of its competitors. And even not just the Wix and the Squarespace, the paid competitors, but even the open source competitors. I think Craft has a lovely editing experience in their CMS.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on some points that are kind of on the top of my mind, right? Obviously, running an agency that focuses on WordPress, what's the impact here? What's the impact of Gutenberg? Are we, and the other point that always worries me is that, and has for the past few years around WordPress, is it feels like WordPress is being reactive and kind of, chasing to catch up to other platforms, some of the ones you mentioned, whereas, 4 or 5 years ago, everybody's trying to catch up to WordPress. WordPress was basically blazing the trail forward, right? So I have concerns, and there's an interesting article that was posted over on deliciousbrains.com. Love the domain. He really breaks down some of the concerns about Gutenberg and how this is going to impact, like you said, 29% of the internet. This is going to have some kind of an impact on, even if it's just to immediately turn it off. I don't know. Joe, what are your thoughts? You love it? You hate it? Is this the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I have an online course about it. So I'm at least some kind of supporter of it. I think the thing that a lot of people are worried about is that for like regular WordPress users, they're worried that it's going to confuse or kind of set them back as far as how well they know how to use the CMS. A lot of people say WordPress is very easy to use for people who have been embedded in the space for 10 years. Yes, it's very easy to use. For a brand new user, it's not easy to use at all. It takes training. So I like that they're kind of doing this. I mean, it's very hard, right? When you have a big software, when you have this giant software system, 29% of the web, right? We want to try to maintain backwards compatibility, but we do still want to try to push forward, right? It's not like Squarespace, where Squarespace can decide they want to do something and just roll it out tomorrow to every system on the web, to every Squarespace site on the web. You can't really do that with WordPress. As far as using it goes, I think it works pretty well. I know it's getting better every day. It's not ready for prime time yet. And 5.0 won't come out until it is ready for prime time. But I think this is a step in the right direction. It's not quite going to replace page builders, at least right now. It's more of like a rich content layout, right? So instead of like having to upload all of your images to a gallery and then like add the short code, you can just drag a bunch of images right into the editor and have a gallery block created, which I think is really nice. And I think that moving forward, once Gutenberg gets to a point where the editor is really good, we're going to see it replace things in the customizer. We're going to see it replace widgets probably. And so my main takeaway is, whether you love it or hate it, I think you need to learn it. You need to kind of get on board. There's the classic editor plugin, but this is the future of WordPress. And unless you want to move everything off of WordPress, which I don't plan to do anytime soon, I'm going to get on board and use it and provide all of the feedback that I have to the Gutenberg team.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you work at a Pagely, the hosting company that specializes in WordPress. So this has to be a hot topic internally, and a topic that is coming up probably very regularly with a lot of your clients on the platform. Is this the future of WordPress? Is this the end of WordPress as we know it? What's the
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't say, I would say that it might be the future of WordPress for the consumer or the blogger, right? Even the small business owner type of person. And you might echo this too, Brad, in the enterprise spaces. I don't really hear many enterprises rah-rahing about it, right? More so like, oh my God, what do we have to do to be backwards compatible with this thing that's going to get shoehorned into WordPress core. I think it's one of these things where it's just like an obvious path for Matt and Automattic and WordPress to go. It's a little bit deflating in my eyes. No Tom Brady jokes with that, Brad. It's a little bit deflating because I was much more rallied around the future of WordPress as, and I'll sort of paraphrase Mullenweg here, is when he said that he felt WordPress was an operating system for the internet. Mm-hmm. When I heard those words 4-ish years ago, I can't remember when, I was like, yes, I like this. I like that. I like that idea. I like REST API. I was watching the growth of WordPress, and I was like, that's the future, right? I want to be able to display content from WordPress to my refrigerator, to my car's stereo dashboard, to my watch, whatever it might be. And that was the future. And now I'm seeing this more of like, let's play catch up with, Wix and Squarespaces of the world, yep. Which I totally get. It doesn't excite me. And it's, to me, this is much more of a commercialized play, more so than innovative.
Yeah.
I can't wait for a day when I teach a client how to update their website and I don't have to be embarrassed by telling them, okay, now we got to go over to this other widgets page, go to appearance.
Yes, I totally get that.
Now we go to menus and no, don't worry about what it looks like right there. That's not really what it looks like in the editor. It's going to look different. Trust me. I can't wait till that feeling of like, just believe me. Oh, I hate that phrase now. Is actually just out of my vocabulary when I'm doing client trainings, because it's very awkward when we're saying, oh, this is just such an easy to use platform. And it's really not. Like, I think Joe was saying that earlier. People will, if you're just new at it, it's not intuitive at all. And I think this will help make things a little more intuitive. Now, as a designer, some of the pieces scare the out of me because there's a lot of control for like, okay, make this background blue and then do this. And it's like, okay, that gives you flexibility. But then what happens when you update it in the future and you decide to take out all the blues? Can you do that programmatically? No, you're going to have to do that on a page by page basis.
This is what I found so interesting about the Matt's direction on creating his own vision of a builder versus like when he looked at WooCommerce and said, well, WordPress needs e-commerce and WooCommerce has this market already and it has a customer base, it has marketing, it has brand, and let me just go acquire it. And I found this very interesting to see him build something from scratch versus a Beaver Builder, an Elementor, and a Divi. You could argue that last point, but a Divi that already has these things thought out, right? They have the customer experience. So they kind of already know what's going to happen, what customers expect, what users expect, and how to do front end really well. And I've just found it interesting that they built it organically versus going out and acquiring something, which only makes me believe that either he felt it wasn't good enough or there's something else at play in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely a major change for WordPress. The future is yet to be seen with this, but I think one quote that really stood out for me in this article is, if the next version of WordPress comes with a feature that the majority of users immediately want to turn off or think they'll never use, then we've blown it. And I think that's something that everybody involved with Gutenberg and everybody in the community and everybody that uses WordPress really needs to think about. If it is something that the majority of the people are like, nope, then something's wrong with that. And it's something we need to be thinking about. So Gutenberg, it's coming. It's gonna happen by all accounts. And we'll see. So that is that. Did we end up on the ship bell? I think I like that. Can we talk about flamethrowers for a minute? So
we're going to keep talking about Gutenberg. Okay.
Hey.
Oh. Yeah. So obviously I am the segue master. But flamethrowers, right? These are cool. So Elon Musk, I love this guy. I'm going to probably talk about him a lot on my show because pretty much everything he does is amazing. It's always very borderline, either, amazing genius, technical genius, or like evil villain, the type of stuff that he does. And I feel like this is definitely following it. So Elon Musk's company, The Boring Company, which we'll talk about in a second, he actually came out and said, hey, we're going to sell flamethrowers to raise some money, to kind of mention it as a joke. Well, everyone thought it was a joke. Turns out it was not a joke. So they actually went up for pre-sale, and for 500 smackaroos, you could order a flamethrower, and they look pretty fun. And believe it or not, I guess I do believe it, they sold 20,000 flamethrowers. They sold out of the initial offering, and bringing in $10 million. Did anybody here get a flamethrower?
No.
I'm married. No offense. Just kidding.
That idea, huh? So, I mean, on the surface, it seems kind of gimmicky and silly, but if you really think about it, he just, obviously he didn't bring in $10 million, but they brought in a sizable chunk of money for this company. And I don't know if you know much about the Boring Company. I'd heard about it when it was first announced back when, but I did a little bit more research, and what they're attempting to do is essentially build a network of underground tunnels for transportation, and it is absolutely futuristic and amazing. This is a huge, in true Elon Musk fashion, huge undertaking and a huge opportunity that, if he makes it work, could absolutely impact how we travel. They have an awesome video out there. I'll have some links in the show notes where you can actually watch this kind of prototype animation of what it would look like. Essentially pull your car into an underground tunnel and, zoom you in underground tunnels across the city or from city to city at, speeds of 150, 200 miles an hour. Absolutely insane, but he's getting very creative in how he earns this money. And I think these flamethrowers are a great twist. I'm sure we're going to see him end up on eBay. So next time you're looking at a good marketing gimmick, how to raise a little bit of cash, everybody loves a flamethrower.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you that there's there are no rules to this stuff, I guess, better or for worse. But to be as creative as that, started with the hats and now the flamethrowers, I'm sure there'll be something else that's next. And it just shows like the sheer audacity, not just the company itself, like digging holes underground for transportation, but all of his companies and the ways raising capital and attention. It's pretty amazing.
It reminded me, like, the way he marketed it of Cards Against Humanity, right? He was just like, don't buy this. This is stupid. But people bought it because it's a flamethrower. Right. So I want to say two things. First is I texted my wife and I said we should get this. And she was like, well, we do have a lot of weeds. So my wife was like on board. But the other thing is that Elon Musk, all this stuff that he's doing kind of reminds me of a modern day Walt Disney, right? I think that's Walt Disney like pushed the boundaries of a lot of things. He thought monorails were going to be the way that people traveled, and he passed away before he could see that realized. And like Epcot was supposed to be this futuristic community. And Elon Musk today is I had no idea the Boring Company was like, that was their main mission, right? But between, like Matt said, all the stuff he's doing, I see a lot of similarities between them. Elon Musk just says, I'm going to do something that everybody else thinks is impossible. And then he goes and does it, which is amazing.
It's
yeah.
crazy.
If you haven't seen his interview with Chris Anderson on the TED stage, he didn't do a talk, but they sat down and talked for 40 minutes or something. And that's when he gives a demonstration. There's a video of the Boring Company's little like skateboard that goes down and like shoots you off. It doesn't necessarily solve traffic problems in LA, but I think it might make it better for some people. I'm sure that they'll have to pay more, paid prioritization of using the fast lane. There you go. Commercial example of that. I think the marketing stance is genius. I would have loved to have been around that board table when they're like, okay, we need a good idea to promote this thing. And like, how do you get to flamethrower? That's just kind of amazing. But even in that TED interview, he talked about some of the other things they were working on and some of their philosophies and why they're doing some of the things they're doing. It's really just fascinating, like to be inside his head. I don't know how it works. I'm glad there's people out there that think of this stuff because it's really important for innovation. And he said that he's going to have the first coast to coast automated driving car by this December, I believe. So completely driverless. I mean, there'll be a driver in there, but no touching the wheel.
And he is not one to miss a deadline. That is for sure. So it is really cool because he absolutely thinks outside the box and takes on challenges that I think most of us, if not all of us, think are impossible. So I'm glad people like him are in the world really pushing the boundaries of what we're doing and the technology behind it. So hats off. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another round of flamethrowers coming at some point once they get stocked back up. So that'll be really fun to see when they get in everyone's hands. And there's 20,000 flamethrowers out there and YouTube videos and all sorts of good stuff. So
man, YouTube videos are going to be so good. We're going to see a lot of really great stuff on Facebook Live and Instagram Live too.
Until someone lights themselves on fire, right?
Right.
All right, let's talk about, is it Strava or Strava? I actually don't use this app, but I'm familiar with it. Strava, right? It's a popular app for tracking your activities, exercising, running, cycling, swimming, biking. Well, they came out with a fun little map that kind of showed an interactive map that kind of showed heat maps of, where people are working out and tracking their activity. And what was quickly discovered was this information, which kind of seems obvious on the surface, but this information was actually exposing U.S. military bases around the world. It was exposing people that were in different areas that maybe we didn't know about. It was showing repeatable patterns of where people were going in a military base, which is something you absolutely do not want because then obviously the enemy can plan for that. So is this kind of a duh, like obviously they should have known this, or this kind of goes back to the whole privacy of the internet and at what point do you draw the line? But I have a Fitbit on my arm and this thing has GPS in it. It is tracking me. How often? Who knows? What do you guys think? You have trackable devices? Is this something we need to be worried about?
I think that this is often, maybe not in every case, a cause of teams who are developing this not being diverse enough, because I would never, ever, ever enable location device on track me through my runs. I don't run. Who am I kidding? But I have shut off all location awareness. And yes, I don't get some of the benefits from that. But as a female in this world where everything is shared way too often, I don't like to check into places until I leave. And then maybe I was in the area, but you don't know exactly where I am right now. So I think that this is partially a design problem. However, when you download these apps, so you open these apps, they ask for your permission. Now, how many people read every dialog box that pops up? Chances are you just skip intro, skip, okay, just to dismiss it so you can continue your first workout or whatnot. So what is the solution for a problem like this? I mean, the heat map didn't have to exist at all. It was just a feature that they could build it, so they did.
Yeah, I mean, their response was essentially they're going to evaluate their privacy settings, and it looks like a little more easier or more ways to opt out of things like this. But yeah, I mean, is there anything more that they could potentially do beyond that?
I think user education, I don't want to place the blame on the user because they didn't make their data public in a way that Strava did. But when I was teaching a computer literacy course at the University of Scranton, I showed them my location history on Google, right? I went before, this was 5 years ago or something like that. Google, if you had an Android phone or the Google app on your iOS device, just keeps everything. You could still go to your account and see your location history and see where you've been. And I was like, here it is, all on a Google map. You guys now know where I hang out. And that really freaked them out. I think that Stacy's right in that dialog boxes have kind of become like the end user license agreement, right? I have to say yes to this. I have to say yes to this. I have to say yes to this. Oh, all of a sudden Strava now knows everything about me. I also have friends who work in the government who are not allowed to bring their cell phones into their office. It is probably unreasonable to implement a policy like that on a military base. But, the U.S. military, according to the story, says they plan to review their own rules. And I think that's probably worthwhile too. If you're in a place where, privacy, anonymity is important to the survival of everybody on that base, then there should be a policy in place for that too. So I think it's a whole lot of things, from the bad decision making at Strava, from probably just a bunch of engineers going, hey, we could do this, let's do it, right down to the user who maybe had no idea that Strava could do that with their data.
This actually, many of you probably know I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps right out of high school. And I remember they had maps, like printed maps. The youngins out there probably don't know what that is, but an actual printable map of the area, right? And printed maps back then, I don't even know about now, because who has printed maps, but military bases were blanked out. You didn't know the roads. They just were blank spots on the map, right? And then Google Maps came out. And you could literally see every single road on the base. I remember pulling up the base I was stationed at, and I could see every single building, every road, everything. And I'm like, what? Like, are they going to stop this? And they never did. They just said, okay, so you can still, look in at these military bases. But prior to technology kind of getting out there where they could do stuff like this with satellite imagery, they were completely blank, So I kind of wonder, like, is it an evolution of technology and the times we're in, where these things, while initially are going to be looked at as, kind of scary, is that something we're just going to kind of accept? I from a military perspective, probably not, but it's kind of yet to be seen.
The thing that yesterday I received an email, maybe many of you received an email from a popular SaaS company saying that they raised $75 million in their Series D, right? This is a productivity app, to-do lists, basically. And it was, addressed to me like, this $75 million is we're really going to be able to help, literally, humanity was the word that they used in this email. I was thinking to myself, you didn't raise that $75 million to help humanity. This is you building your app. And this goes to the points that Stacey and Joe are making, and maybe even before, like when we were talking about net neutrality, these corporations and companies, they're not thinking about the whole. They're not thinking about humanity. They're thinking about, hey, cool new features. This will net us some more money. This will net us some more users. Nobody's ever really thinking, even with the laws in place, no one's really thinking about this stuff, which is bizarre, but I guess the way that humans work, and one, I guess it's the rules of the military now. Don't bring that stuff with you. But two, I don't really see any of this stuff really changing. I think it's just cool features and people will do it. It's just like we give all of our privacy to Facebook already, right? So
it's like what you look at it in the same sense of the idea of social media being abused, and the Facebook and Twitter, and now they're really, it's like, at what point is the service or the app responsible, or have some type of responsibility about things that are going on in their service that maybe aren't necessarily illegal, but things they need to be considering from day one? And we're seeing Facebook take some action around that. Twitter is starting to take some action around that, especially because of a lot of the election stuff in the US, right?
Right.
So I do think there is a larger conversation that is happening, which is a good conversation of the responsibility that these apps and services have, and kind of the duty that they need to be thinking about and providing, that it's not just roll something out to make money. Like, you could potentially get people hurt, by not thinking about this stuff up front. And then what happens to your startup? If a base were to be attacked, and they know this one trail that this group of, Marines runs on every morning at 6 a.m., what's going to happen to your company then? And I guarantee it's not going to be good for profits. Absolutely. So
I have seen lately a uptick in like conference talks and articles about ethics in design and feature creation. So that's something positive that maybe we can keep promoting. Maybe more people can keep speaking about that and teaching people what it means to have ethical decisions in these applications. I think that's something that has been far overlooked over just features for coolness sake, and they don't think about how it affects people's lives.
Yeah, I think in the automobile industry, if you think about just cars, there's no guarantee, no manufacturer guarantees you will be safe in a car accident, right? And cars have been in production 150 years, whatever the number is. And you put that against Internet of Things and data and stuff like that. It's like just born, right? This industry, cars haven't even guaranteed safety. And what's really crazy is when you pit the same argument up against stuff like Elon Musk is doing with AI-driven cars, algorithms, and all that stuff, and ethics. What happens when the self-driving car has to either drive you off a cliff to avoid a vehicle or smash into that vehicle and get 2 people killed or a family's killed, right? At what point, is this safety and algorithms and AI? I don't know. It's just like, it's a crazy world that we live in. Maybe we should just say no cars go over 30 miles an hour anymore. And we sacrifice the speed factor and the time factor for safety. These arguments.
Interesting point for sure.
Yeah. I just want to jump to the point where we're all in self-driving cars and they're all talking to each other on a neural network, right? Because then we're all safe. Because people, I trust robots more than people when it comes to driving. Like, people are terrible drivers. Being from New York, living close to New Jersey, this is a 100% truth. So I look forward to our robot driver overlords.
Yeah, that soundbite will
before my kids are 16. I hope everything's autonomous. I don't know how parents do that.
If they could just integrate a way that we could leave ratings for other drivers, thumbs up or down, and that way, when you're around like someone that's got a very low rating on the road,
just avoid them.
Black Mirror season 5. Awesome. Well, there's one final topic. We're actually running a little bit long. This has been a lot of fun on the episode, so. Thanks for hanging in, everybody. One final topic I do want to get to because it affects some of my friends, and some might even call this breaking news.
Breaking news.
As of yesterday, but CNN does it, so I'm doing it too. Liquid Web has acquired iThemes. So Liquid Web is a popular web hosting company. They've been around for a number of years. They host not just WordPress sites, but all sorts of platforms, but WordPress is one of their focuses. They have acquired the popular product company iThemes, who has a number of products that some of you are familiar with. Backup Buddy is one of their biggies. iThemes Sync is another. What do you think, guys? This is pretty big news.
Congratulations, Corey. Team.
I have 2 thoughts on this. The first is, I love the iThemes team and I love the Liquid Web team. So this is, it's great, I think, for everybody. I'm very excited for everybody. It's also a continuing trend. I think Brian Krogsgaard wrote about this on Post Status, that we're seeing, hosting providers eat up a lot of smaller WordPress-based companies. I think we're going to continue to see that. I'm curious to see what Matt thinks about that, working at one of the major hosting companies. But it's as a guy who tries to get sponsors for my courses and my podcast, all of the money or a lot of the money is in hosting, at least in the WordPress ecosystem. So I think we're definitely going to see a lot more of that. I think this one makes a lot of sense because most of iThemes services are integrated with Liquid Web. iThemes Sync, Backup Buddy can benefit from infrastructure. Sales Accelerator is integrated in their managed WooCommerce hosting. So I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. But
yeah, Matt, as someone in the hosting space, obviously I think I'm really excited for Corey and the whole iThemes team at Liquid Web as well. I think it's awesome. I immediately thought about other hosts, right? And how would other hosts take this? Because now you have obviously a direct competitor, Liquid Web, that has bought a product company that a lot of your customers on Pagely are using.
Yeah, I think that every good host anyway, has their particular strength. And I think that Liquid Web and what Chris Lemma has built when he joined the team, with a hyper focus on WooCommerce, and with Corey's team pivoting to make a hyper focus on WooCommerce with their new app and a lot of the stuff that they do with around security and keeping sites up to date. I think it makes total sense, for that environment. In terms of, our customers, I don't know the number of how many people actually use iThemes Sync or Backup Buddy or anything like that. But it's a good play when it's a good fit like that. And I agree with Joe that more hosts will probably start to do it when they find a particular fit. And again, I think it all depends on the vertical of that hosting company. You saw it with GoDaddy, right? Sort of doing things with their site manager. I don't know what it's called specifically, but having a top collection of plugins that most of their customers use and sort of just pre-baking that into the experience. Of course, their acquisition of Sucuri for security needs and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to continue to happen. In terms of, if you were to say like, what's Pagely's thoughts on that? I think that we are focused on totally different types of customers than a Liquid Web. But I think every host is going to start to make these types of plays, for where it fits in their business model.
Yeah, I think it will be very interesting to see in the coming, months, years, probably, if, iThemes, the brand iThemes remains, or if it is rebranded as a Liquid Web's backup buddy or Liquid Web's, security. And if so, and that starts showing up in the dashboard of other hosting companies, I could see that being a very kind of sticky situation. So I don't have any sense of whether they would ever do that or not, but just thinking through it. But I think it's pretty exciting. Stacey, you got any thoughts on that?
No, I just logged into my iThemes account to see what's going on and what do I have to pay attention to in case it ever goes away as a non-Liquid Web customer. Yeah,
they made it pretty clear that existing customers should expect certainly no difference in what they're getting today. And if anything, they're going to start seeing even more value with their current products and things like that. So as current customers, and I'm an iThemes customer as well, probably all of us are on this show. And in some sense, we have nothing to worry about. They're good people, so they're not gonna. Yeah, they're gonna just
from like a business standpoint. I mean, Liquid Web customers probably make up such a small fraction, or iThemes customers might make up a small fraction of Liquid Web customers, from a sense that they're paying separately, right? They get a couple of things baked in, but Liquid Web offers, automatic plugin updates, for example. Liquid Web offers backups, for example. So, unless Liquid Web wants their brand new investment to lose just a ton of their SiteGround customers, WP Engine customers, Pagely customers, it would be very silly for them to do things that would alienate the other hosting companies.
Yeah, I completely agree. So congrats to everyone. Big news. Go get it, Corey. Oh, we know who to find dinner next time. So let's go. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I do want to make one quick mention of an event coming up on Tuesday, which is, I don't know if you guys follow SpaceX, another Elon Musk wonderment, which is crazy. But Falcon Heavy has a launch date. And Falcon Heavy, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially the big boy. It's the mega rocket that they got to shoot into the air. I mean, it basically doubles the payload of any current rocket out there. They have a launch date of Tuesday, February 6th, with a backup date on the 7th. I think the coolest thing about SpaceX for me is how integrated the technology is and how much they share it. Like in real time with the live feeds, you're watching it on YouTube. All this data is on the screen. They're doing pre-launch stuff, giving you all this information. It's just, for data geeks and tech geeks, it's just a lot of fun. And Falcon Heavy is exciting. I think my favorite part about this is they're basically shooting it into the atmosphere, launching it, I should say, into the atmosphere. And the payload is going to be Elon Musk's personal Tesla Roadster that they are going to actually fire off. They're literally going to shoot a car into space, and it's going to fly past Mars at some point. So there is going to be a Tesla just flying through space, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Does he get a space loitering ticket for this? Right? Like, does he just throw trash out into the space?
I don't know. It's so clever because not only is he, obviously this is the big test, like for it to go up and come back and land, but he's also promoting his other company, Tesla, by firing a car off into space. So
another great marketing campaign.
Yeah. Is there going to be a flamethrower like in the glove box?
I heard that the Tesla is going to be replaced by fans of the losing team from Sunday, which just benefits everybody else, I think.
Oh boy. Going back to that.
The big game. I didn't say the forbidden term, right? The big game.
All right, we'll get picks. Who's going to win? I'm going to go with Eagles. I'm in Philly. I'm rooting for the local team. Eagles all the way.
I got to go lesser two evils and pick the Pats.
Matt, I don't need to ask you. Matt's obviously a Pats fan. Stacey, who you picking?
I was rooting for the Vikings. I'm super sad. I've been a Vikings fan sometimes like 5, and we were so close. So I'm rooting for the ads. I want some good ads this year. I've been sorely disappointed the last 2 years. I want them to pick it back up.
They have been kind of a letdown last few years, and I really don't like this trend of all the ads coming out early. They've been showing them all week, and I'm like, I just want to see them on the game day, and I can watch them after. I don't want to see them early. But
listen, we might have 5 Super Bowl wins, but you know how stressful those 5 Super Bowl wins were? Did you guys see those that Barstool spin on that? I mean, they were not easy. They weren't. I want a blowout. I want a blowout in this one. It's not going to happen. It's going to be stressful. We're going to be down by 38.
At the end of the day, I want a good game. So I don't want a blowout either way. I want a good game because blowouts are not fun. They're not exciting. So we will see. This Sunday is the big Super Bowl, so that'll be a lot of fun. And if the Eagles win, there may not be another show because I'm pretty sure they're going to burn the city down, whether we win or lose. To be honest, we'll see if we're back in a couple weeks. But definitely want to thank everyone for joining. Episode 1, my panelists, you guys are awesome. Real quick, we'll go around the horn, kind of where can people find you online? You know, where's your work at, your business, whatever you want to plug. Joe, what do you got?
All my stuff is at casabona.org. That's CASABONA. And I am Jay Casabona on pretty much every social network. I'm most active on Twitter.
I am. Stacy, where can people find you?
You can find me at the oddbird.net website. We build Python apps and very little in WordPress, but find me specifically at Twitter at Stacy Cavermo. Good luck spelling my name. And if you care about gymnastics or yoga, you can follow me on Instagram at FunStacy.
And Stacy is a world-class gymnast. She you just had a competition, which was a lot of fun to watch her progress. She posts a lot of videos, and to see her progressing through that and doing her competition there was really cool. So congrats on that. I know that was a big undertaking.
Huge deal. Yes.
Matt, where can people find you at?
Craftedbymatt.com. Were you not going to buzz me out of the air that time?
Wow.
I was just giving you a minute.
Crafted by Matt. If you want managed WordPress hosting, find me at pagely.com.
There it is. The big plug. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. # Lunch with Brad. I'm on Twitter, WilliamsBA, and we will be back in 2 weeks for another episode of
Back in 2 and 2.
And I know you're all ready for it. Lunch with Brad. Lunch with Brad.
Oh. Soup and sandwich.
Oh, this gets stuck in your head. Trust me.
I didn't even have lunch.
$50.
Fake advertising. Fake news.
Yeah, I was told that lunch would be provided.